Today on Real Estate Backstage, the battle between Compass and the Northwest MLS hits a fever pitch, with Compass's IDX feed being temporarily turned off. Both Zillow and Redfin have announced bans on listings that don't follow NAR rules from their websites. Consumers begin to react to the new tariff policy, and financial markets actually have a relatively calm week following the volatility that we saw earlier in the month. Now, before we jump into today's discussion, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to subscribe to the show. That way you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're looking for the show notes with links to the articles that we're going to reference today, you can find that at realestatebackstage.com/episode 25. Now, if this is your first time watching or listening, I'm your host, Michael Smith. I'm the CEO and broker in charge here at Bluefield Realty Group. We're a three-time Inc. 5000 company headquartered here in Greenville, South Carolina, and we provide real estate brokerage, property management, and insurance services. So last week we discussed the battle that was brewing between Compass and the Northwest MLS, with Compass agreeing to indefinitely cover the fines that their agents may incur by launching these private exclusive listings in direct defiance of the local MLS rules. Now, this week things have gotten a little bit more interesting. This is according to RIS Media. Quote, Northwest MLS reportedly shut off its internet data exchange listings feed to Compass earlier this week. RIS Media confirmed the report with Compass. As of today, NWMLS has reinstated the feed after Compass agreed to comply with its rules. The shutoff of NWMLS's IDX feed to Compass.com meant that any non-Compass property listed by the MLS after the shutdown was not available on Compass.com. Chris Nelson, the regional vice president for Compass, told RIS Media that despite following NWMLS's published rules, Compass's IDX feed was suspended without warning, impacting our clients and agents alike. NWMLS is a broker-owned MLS and is the only MLS in the country that prohibits agents from marketing a property on the internet, privately or publicly, unless it's listed in the MLS. According to Nelson, the action of NWMLS was a stark example of monopolistic control that limits homeowner choice, stifles competition, and sets a dangerous precedent for broker accountability and market fairness. NWMLS said in a statement to RIS Media that the shutoff was the result of Compass's failure to input numerous of its own listings and share those listings with other member real estate firms and their clients in accordance with Northwest MLS's rules. Northwest MLS worked with Compass on April 15th and 16th to facilitate Compass's compliance with Northwest MLS's rules. And the NWMLS confirmed that the data license has been reinstated as of April 17th due to Compass's commitment that it would comply with the MLS rules going forward, unquote. So NAR's Clear Cooperation Policy does require that all realtors submit their listings to a NAR-affiliated MLS within 1 business day of commencing any type of public marketing. But there is an exception for what they call office-exclusive listings. So if you get a listing agreement signed and you start marketing it internally within your company to the other agents in your office and to your brokerage's clients, then in that scenario, you don't have to submit it to the MLS. But once you take that step from internal marketing to external marketing, anything public-facing, like a sign in the yard, a post on Facebook, anything like that is what is going to cause the Clear Cooperation Policy to kick in. Now, this is according to Compass's website. Quote, just like many companies test products with a smaller audience before launch, listing your home as a Compass private exclusive allows you to test the price, gain critical insights, generate early demand, and extend your marketing runway all before going public. Compass private exclusives are properties that are only accessible to Compass agents and their serious buyers. This means that you can get a head start on marketing your home without accumulating any public days on market or price drops that could negatively impact its value, unquote. So the Compass private exclusive offering is basically just an office exclusive, which is the carve-out allowed for in NAR's Clear Cooperation Policy. So because the listings are only exposed to Compass agents and their clients, this would be acceptable under NAR's Clear Cooperation Policy. However, the Northwest MLS has elected to be more restrictive than NAR, and they do not allow office-exclusive listings for the agents that are within their jurisdiction. Now, this is according to RIS Media. Quote, this development follows the recent brewing of a potential lawsuit against NWMLS by a group called Washington Homeowner Rights, backed by Compass. The website for the group, which Compass confirmed that it did create, solicits home sellers who experienced a public price drop, stayed on the market longer than expected, and were unable to protect their privacy during the sale. Washington Homeowner Rights alleges that NWMLS's ban of pre-marketing and off-MLS marketing leaves sellers no choice but to fully expose their listing immediately, leading to longer days on market and price reductions that may hurt their bottom line. Compass CEO Robert Refkin and NWMLS President and CEO Justin Hagg have been outspoken about their opposing views on CCP, clear cooperation policy, which HAG is in support of and Refkin is against, unquote. Meanwhile, both Zillow and Redfin have announced bans on listings that don't adhere to the clear cooperation policy. Now, this is according to Inman. Quote, this month, Zillow and Redfin rocked the industry by banning listings that aren't added to the multiple listing service within 24 hours of public marketing. The similar portal policies, which came 2 weeks after the National Association of Realtors announced the new delayed marketing exempt listing option for its clear cooperation policy, have led to mounting questions from agents and brokers over the legality and logistics behind the ban. On April 10th, Zillow Group announced its new listing access standard for Zillow and Trulia, which bans listings that aren't added to the MLS within 24 hours of being publicly marketed. Zillow said public marketing includes yard signs, social media posts, and brokerage private listing networks, where consumers must log into a site to see listings. On April 14th, Redfin joined Zillow Group and created a policy that bans listings if they aren't added to the MLS within 24 hours of being publicly marketed. Alongside the listings ban, Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman called on MLSs to create a new coming soon designation that bans portals from displaying how long a home has been for sale and at what prices. Redfin hasn't said when it would implement the new policy, and leaders are still working on the technical logistics of the ban. Although some industry members have argued that Zillow doesn't have the right to ban listings as an IDX displaying broker, current NAR and MLS rules are on the portal side. In a previous Inman article, California Regional MLS VP and General Counsel Ed Zorn said Zillow Group, and now Redfin, is within its rights to ban listings on Zillow and Trulia that don't follow its listings access standard. There seems to be a misunderstanding that if you take an internet data exchange, a data feed, that you are required to display all of the listings, he said. And in fact, NAR's Handbook on Multiple Listing Policy, Statement 7.58, states the exact opposite principle. What it says is participants may select the IDX listings they choose to display based on only objective criteria, including but not limited to factors such as geography or location, list price, type of property, or type of listing, he added. So the type of listing is even included as one of the few types of objective examples that NAR provides. Industry members on both sides of the spectrum have called on the Department of Justice to investigate the opposing side. CoStar Group CEO Andy Florence has urged agents to report Zillow Group to the DOJ's antitrust division, while two consumer watchdogs said that the department should be stopping the industry's largest brokerages from creating expansive private listing networks. It's unclear whether the DOJ will answer either side's clarion call, as the law enforcement agency has signaled that it's less interested in the CCP now that NAR has scrapped the participation rule, which previously mandated that listing brokers include an offer of compensation, as small as $1, to buyer brokers participating in a transaction, unquote. All right, meanwhile, we have some emerging data on how consumers are starting to react to the new tariff regime. This is according to Inman. Quote, President Trump's tariff policy and developing trade war with China are pushing Americans to rethink major purchases, according to a Redfin Commission survey on Thursday. The Ipsos survey of over 1,000 U.S. adults revealed 24% of Americans are canceling plans to purchase a home or car due to fears about tariffs, and 32% said they're pausing such purchases. When political affiliation is thrown into the mix, Democratic voters are more likely to cancel, 36%, or delay, 43%. Purchase plans than Republican voters, 15% and 21% respectively. Betting markets have the odds of a recession at higher than 50%, which is understandably making people wary of putting a big chunk of their money toward a house or a car. Redfin economics lead Chen Zhao said in a written statement. Consumers are tightening their belts because they are rightly nervous about their job security and the prospect of paying more for everyday expenses. The Trump administration imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum in March, a 25% tariff on autos on April 3rd, and a 10% blanket tariff on imports from most U.S. trading partners on April 5th. Some goods from Mexico and Canada, including lumber, are exempt from the 10% baseline tariff under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the USMCA. A Biden-era 14.5% tariff on Canadian lumber remains in effect. Country-specific reciprocal tariffs of up to 50% against dozens of countries that the Trump administration announced on April 2nd are on hold until July 9th, with the president claiming leaders of 70 countries have reached out to negotiate trade deals. So just in case you missed it, 2 weeks ago on episode 23, we talked a lot about these so-called reciprocal tariffs that Trump announced on Liberation Day, April 2nd. And then last week on episode 24, we talked about the 90-day pause and why I believe Trump put that into effect. All right, shifting gears, mortgage rates fall as markets remain calm. This is according to Logan Motoshami over at Housing Wire. Quote, over the weekend, fears rose that the 10-year yield would climb to 5%, leading to 8% mortgage rates. However, Monday morning arrived with a sense of calm. The 10-year yield is now nearing a more balanced position at 4.35%, reflecting what I believe it should have always been after the jobs report 2 Fridays ago. As I write this, the 10-year yield currently stands at 4.37%. Remarkably, mortgage rates have dipped below 7% once more. Let's not forget that the housing data has been positive, with rates hovering around 6.75% this year, reminding us that opportunity is always present if mortgage rates keep falling. So, what happened to calm the markets? To begin with, market fluctuations are generally unsustainable in the long term, and the recent response to the imposition of tariffs has been notably pronounced, indicating a level of preparedness that may have been lacking among investors. This situation led to a significant influx in capital into the bond market. Subsequently, some investors needed to sell their bonds to meet margin calls, while others sought to reallocate their portfolios. Additionally, with tax day approaching, it is not uncommon for individuals to wait until the last moment to sell stocks or bonds in order to raise funds. There's also been an outflow of foreign investment in the markets, contributing to the current volatility. However, such periods of instability are typically temporary. Furthermore, the recent actions taken by the government suggest the White House is responding to the legitimate concerns of Americans regarding tariffs and job security. With speculation that trade deals will eventually be completed, the market has taken a breather for now after an historically crazy period of volatility. During the middle of the day on Monday, Fed President Waller presented an argument in favor of cutting rates more quickly if the labor market shows signs of weakening. This perspective emphasizes the importance of prioritizing labor stability over inflation concerns. As a result of his statements, the 10-year yield experienced further decline throughout the day. From Waller's remarks, if the tariff-induced slowdown is significant and threatens a recession, I would expect to favor cutting sooner and faster than previously thought. When Federal Reserve presidents emphasize labor concerns over inflation and the markets respond calmly, it seems that if the worst happens to the economy, the Fed will step in and ensure that one of its dual mandates is met by providing maximum employment. Their focus seems to be shifting from merely restoring the Fed funds rate to a neutral position to adopting a more accommodative stance. This approach could potentially help us either prevent a recession or navigate our way out of one, unquote. So we have been seeing some really encouraging leading indicators in the market recently, both in terms of purchase mortgage applications and pending contracts. Both of those lines are up year over year, and that's been with rates hovering between 6.5% and 7%. So if we could just get mortgage rates down closer to 6% and keep them there, then I'm sure we would see some real meaningful growth in transactions. All right, y'all, we're going to wrap things up this week with another segment of Ask Me Anything. This is where you ask questions and I answer them, hence the name. If you want your question asked on the show, you can send us an email to hello@realestatebackstage.com. Our first question comes from Alex. Alex says, there's a chance I may be relocating to a new state due to my spouse's job. If you were dropped in a new market tomorrow and had to start from scratch, what would you do to get business quickly? So I was actually in a very similar situation to this about 9 years ago when my family relocated from Florida up here to South Carolina. So I was in the mortgage business down in Florida. I quit my job. We moved up here to Greenville. I went to real estate school, got my license, and started practicing. Now, at the time, we had 2 small kids. We now have 5 kids. And my wife was a stay-at-home mom, which means we were a one-income household. We had a few months' worth of expenses in the bank, which means we had a very limited amount of time to make this work. I had to start earning money quick, or we were going to have to make some changes. So the advice that I'm going to give you is going to be applicable whether you are in a brand new market or if you're just a brand new agent in general. The number one reason why new agents don't succeed is they don't have a consistent approach to lead generation and lead conversion. You got to look at those as 2 separate things. Lead generation is anything you do to add new names to your database. Lead conversion is the process of moving those people in your database through a sales funnel from lead to client to pending to close, for example. Now, there are a million different ways to generate leads, and a lot of agents can get distracted. They get shiny object syndrome. They try too many things. They don't try anything enough. They don't give anything enough time to actually work. I'll hear people all the time say open houses don't work, internet leads don't work, direct mail doesn't work. Listen, everything works if you're good at it and if you're consistent with it. So I put lead generation into 2 different columns. You've got prospecting and you've got marketing. Prospecting requires your time. Marketing requires your money. So what you pick is going to depend on your budget, your skill set, your personality. In the prospecting column, we've got things like door knocking, cold calling for sell by owners and expireds, going to networking events, things like that. In the marketing column, you could buy leads from Zillow, Realtor.com. You could run Google pay-per-click ads. You can run Facebook ads. to an IDX website with forced registration. You could do direct mail. You could do radio. You could do billboards. There's a million different things you could do. My advice would be to pick one or two things that you feel are a good fit for you. Get really good at them and do them consistently. So if door knocking is going to be your thing, watch a bunch of YouTube videos of people who are really great at door knocking. Learn the scripts and the dialogues. Figure out what successful agents are doing if door knocking is your thing. And then you got to get out there and knock on a whole bunch of doors. And you got to do it over and over and over and over. And it could take months before you start to see the results. Now, if door knocking is not your thing and you're going to cold call FSBOs, again, get good at calling FSBOs. Watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts with other agents that crush it with FSBOs, figure out what works. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And then you just got to be consistent. Maybe you're going to spend 4 hours a day calling FSBOs. Now, if that's not your thing, maybe internet leads is what you want to do. Me personally, when I moved up here 9 years ago and I got my real estate license, I didn't want to door knock. I didn't want to cold call FSBOs. So internet leads was my thing. Swiped the credit card, started buying leads from Realtor.com and Zillow, started running ads on Google, set up my own website, and the rest is history. But if that's what you're going to do, you've got to be consistent, not just with spending the money to buy the leads, but actually calling the leads quickly, knowing how to talk to them, how to ask the right questions, and have a consistent time block in your schedule to follow up with those leads. All right, our next question comes from David. David asks, how do you know when it's time to hire an assistant? Lately, I've been feeling burned out and I could really use the help, but I'm nervous about the financial commitment, and I'm also not sure which tasks to delegate and which to keep. So whenever you hire a staff member, particularly the first 1, 2, or 3 staff members if you're growing an organization, what you're essentially doing is you're buying back your time. And this can fit into 2 primary categories. So on the one hand, you could be just trying to reduce your overall number of hours worked, even if that also means that your overall income is going to go down. Or you could be trying to redirect your time into more productive activities, better use of your time, higher dollar per hour stuff. Now, on the one hand, let's say you're currently working 80 hours a week, you're burned out, and you really want to get that down to 40, 50, 60 hours. And let's say you would be totally fine with your income going down by 20% if it means your hours worked goes down by 40%. That could be a great solution for you. On the other hand, if you're not trying to necessarily reduce the number of hours worked, but you're just trying to redirect that time into higher dollar per hour stuff so that you're working the same number of hours, but your income goes up because now you're paying someone $20 an hour to do certain things so that you can spend more of your time doing the $50 an hour, $100 an hour activities. So for example, maybe you hire someone to handle your paperwork. Maybe you hire an administrative assistant or a transaction coordinator. You pay them $20 an hour so that you can spend more time cold calling, door knocking, writing offers, negotiating contracts, things like that. So how do you know when it's time to do that? Well, if you're feeling burned out, it's time to do it. It's always better to hire a little bit too early rather than a little bit too late. This is particularly true if you can start with someone part-time. If that person is flexible and able to start on a part-time schedule and then scale up to full-time as you need them more or as your business grows. And keep in mind, this is a process. It's going to take you some time to find and train the right person. You got to post the job, you got to get applications, you got to screen resumes, you got to do phone interviews, you got to do in-person interviews. You've got to have your onboarding process where you're training this person. So it could take weeks or months to find and train the right person for you. So it's always better to start a little bit earlier than you think than waiting until you're just absolutely slammed and it's a huge inconvenience to take the time away from your day job, your day-to-day business operations, to be interviewing and training somebody. Now, as far as which tasks to delegate versus what to keep, this is really a personal decision. There's not a right or wrong answer. I would recommend get a sheet of paper and start making some lists. What are the things that you're good at versus the things you're not good at? What are the tasks that you enjoy doing versus the things you hate doing? What are the things that are absolutely critical to the success of your business versus the things that are maybe less important? Obviously, the first thing that you want to delegate is something that you don't enjoy and you're not good at. And for every task on your list that you don't enjoy and you're not good at, there's someone out there that is really good at it and really enjoys doing it. So obviously, those are the first things that you want to delegate. And maybe you want to hold on to the things that you enjoy and that you're really good at and are really critical to the success of your business. Maybe you hold on to those things forever, or maybe those are the last things that you delegate as you grow a team and hire more people. Now, in my particular situation, the first employee I hired was someone to do inside sales. Now, I sort of enjoyed it and I was good at it, but I delegated it because of how critical it was to the business. That was the one thing that I didn't want to slip through the cracks. As I got busy with clients and I was out showing houses, I wanted to make sure that we were always answering the phone, calling new leads, following up with leads. That was so mission critical that I did not want that ball to drop as I got busy with other clients. So as I started building a team, the very first person I hired was an ISA. Now, a lot of people will tell you that the first hire you should make would be like an administrative assistant, but you need to be intentional about it. Don't hire a specific role, whether it's ISA, admin, marketing, just because a certain book told you to or a certain person told you to. Go through the exercise, put some thought into it, and figure out what hire is going to make the most sense for you. All right, y'all, that's a wrap for the show today. Just a reminder, you can find the show notes with the links to the articles we referenced at realestatebackstage.com/episode 25. And I'll see you here next week with another behind-the-scenes look at the real estate industry here on Real Estate Backstage.